Hello, friends, and welcome to the first episode of Ubuntu Narratives podcast, where we bring you inspiring African stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary acts towards an equal and just world. Through these stories, we hope to inspire and equip you with practical tools to be the change you want to see for equality and justice. This first season of Ubuntu Narratives podcast is called Working Differently, and sheds light on disability inclusion at the workplace. Through insightful conversations with experts and individuals with lived experiences, this series explores strategies for fostering a more inclusive work environment, breaking barriers, and promoting equal opportunities for all. I'm your host, Christine Butegwa, and this podcast is brought to you by Jabali Consulting. I am pleased to introduce Deborah from National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda, NUDIPU, which is one of the oldest disability organizations in Uganda. And I'm so happy that you could be here, Deborah. Deborah is accompanied by a sign interpreter, Sarah
Ogirot.
I will give both of you a minute to introduce yourselves, starting with Deborah and then Sarah.
Thank you very much, Christine. My name is Deborah Iyute. I work as a program officer in NUDIPU, focusing very much in the area of employment of persons with disabilities. I'm in the project of promoting inclusive employment for persons with disabilities. Right now, I'm leading a project called We Can Work Together with the Light for the World partnership up to 2030. I hope we can benefit.
Welcome, Deborah.
And I'm Sarah Ogirot, sign language interpreter. I work with the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda. I'm the voice and the ear at the moment for Deborah Iyute.
Thank you, Sarah. Deborah, you can start by telling us a bit more about yourself. Who is Deborah? Why do you have Sarah with you? And tell us a bit about your story. How did you get to where you are now? Who inspired you to get to where you are now?
Wow, thank you very much. Yes, I'm Deborah. I use sign language. I'm a woman with a hearing impairment. I've grown up using sign language. I come from Katakwi district. I come from a family of 8 siblings. 6 are deaf and 2 are hearing. So I have grown up in the family of sign language. We get all this, we have learned this at a young age. Brothers and sisters, this has made me also to have the passion to advocate for others. You see, like education during our age, previously behind, it was hard to see inclusive schools. It was hard to see people supported deaf students, but we tried our best to go to mainstream schools. That was the way how we moved up to universities, where we are, and I'm almost now finishing my MA Masters. So what has motivated me is that issue, to promote this issue of saying that we don't want to be sympathized. We can make decisions. We can achieve very big things in the future. If only that we are aware of what we want, where we want to reach, we can drive ourselves and make what we are. Just that is what I want also to show other people, that how I drove myself is also that I want them to get to know that it's easier for all people. So I want people to follow what I made. So, and that's why now I want to say that we need a good environment for us all to be in. So now me coming here, it would be a barrier for me to come here without an interpreter to facilitate the communication. Yes, I'm deaf. You are hearing people, you are listening, but you will be following me using the interpreter. Yes, the deaf can communicate. The deaf can, in case you want a deaf to purely give you clear information, the deaf has to move with an interpreter. That's why I'm moving with Sarah.
Oh my gosh, it's so inspiring, Deborah. You've said you're even doing your master's at the moment. That is really so inspiring. I wanted, maybe you can highlight who are some of the people who inspired you on your journey to reach where you are. Because for many of us, there are certain people who have kind of helped us stand on their shoulders. From what you said, you are family that learned sign language. So I'm assuming your parents and your siblings were some of your inspirations. And maybe through school, you had others who inspired you to get to where you are, a master's student and someone who's doing a lot in the community.
I want to start from my mother first. When you interview many persons with disabilities, the first thing we always see is the mother comes quickly, the heart of a mother. Just imagine a family of 8 children. 6 are deaf, 2 are hearing. It's easier for the community to leave these people, but the mother will always be there to care for her children. There's a social negativity about the deaf people, whereby you can be able to say that these people have no future. You can't get anything. But the mother inspired us. The mother supported us in education. My brothers and sisters who are even older than me, they all work. They are sign language developers, they are directors. And I also learned from them, I got a passion from that. If they can go up to that, even me, I can do the same. Then when I moved in the general disability movement, I see that there are many persons with a disability, like MPs, who are leading us. Like one of the persons, Honorable Asamo, the Minister for Disability right now. When you see her at the primary, she was a primary teacher. Yes, she worked very well. She was a very good lady, good teacher, good mentor. Then she moved to lead the organization for women, mentored many women. This is Honorable Asamo. So this is some of the people who have also mentored some of us as women. Yes, not in education, but in leadership. We have another Honorable Alex MP in Desi. He has also inspired me in the area of advocating for human rights. That's why I have passion and experience. I read a lot of legal framework. What does the legal framework on persons with disability employment, what does it say? Then also our other persons with disabilities who have worked in NUDIPU shared the skills with us, experience, education. This has made me to do this work very well. But previously, I used to work with the Association of the Deaf. I would only advocate for sign language. But when I moved to NUDIPU, now NUDIPU has inspired me to advocate for general all persons with a disability.
So true, so true. The mother is always usually our first role model. And for me as well, my mother is a role model. And I'm so happy to hear that your mother was one of those that inspired you to be where you are, as well as your siblings and all the teachers who inspired you and the MPs. But for a lot of people, disability can be a disadvantage, especially at family and community level. But also we don't know what it is. So I wanted you to maybe enlighten our listeners. What is disability? What is impairment? How is it different from impairment? And what is disability inclusion?
Thank you very much. Yes, I agree with you. Most people don't know about disability, but we have tried to bring up this thing. It's not easy. What we say here is we have definitions at the international level, at the national level, and right now here we are going to focus on the national level, that is Uganda. We have an act, Persons with Disabilities Act 2020. It says functional limitations of daily activities in line with the barriers where by its environment, society. So this functional impairment can be physical barrier, hearing barrier, sensories, all those are in line. Where do they lead us? It leads to persons with disabilities to get no work. We have like some disabilities which are easy to see, like physical, when they use a wheelchair, or they are amputated, maybe have one hand, or they are using crutches, or maybe they have clip foot. That is a group which we call that physical. It's easier for anybody to see that this is a person with disability. However, you come with the people who call the blind people. There are those with the low vision. Somebody brings up, wants to read something, has to move nearer the eye in order to read. There are those who are also fully blind. Then there are those who maybe can see something from afar, or some people have only one eye. All those ones, we call them visually impaired. But what is important here is it's not that all these people want one issue. There are those who will want audio. There are those who will want braille. There are those who want talking computers, like JAWS in their computers. There are those who want large print. You print it large, your document in large, so that it can get. So all these have different needs. When we come in the area of employment, fully visual person needs a guide or a helper who will move with him. But otherwise, the one with the low vision or one eye can move alone independently. So also in the group of persons with a physical disability, not all of them will need helpers. Those who will need, those ones who move with wheelchairs will need somebody to push. And we have those with the cerebral palsy. They were under physical disabilities, but they opted to start their independent, alone organization. They cannot write. The body is always shaking. You come in the group of hearing or deaf people. Those who are hearing, they also have different categories. There are those who are hard of hearing. Somebody can hear a bit, can benefit through a louder voice, or can benefit through writing. I speak, and then somebody writes. Then there are those who were once hearing, but they grew up and lost up their hearing. They can speak, though sometimes not very well, but they can speak. Yes, that's something that you can see, but they cannot hear. However, they will need an interpreter. So the deaf also have three categories. There are those who are hard of hearing. There are those who use fully sign language. Then we also have another group that is deaf and blind. Most of the time, they use tactile. One-on-one, you hold one's hand and then you communicate. This is another complicated disability. Then we have another disability called albino. Many times people say, is being an albino and also a disability? Yes, they have a challenge with their eyes and then the skin. It attracts to cancer very much. They have low vision. They have the visual challenges. So there is some uniqueness. That's why specifically we said each group now has decided to form its own organization whereby their needs can be clarified easily. So albinos also formed their own association. But albinos can work anywhere. What is very important is where the sunshine does not affect their bodies. When they have anything that they use, they can work anywhere. We have also another disability called mental health. We can all be here. It's hard for you to know who has a mental disability. But during the time of COVID, that that economy where people lost jobs, economy became hard. Many people got stressed. Many people got these challenges, and it came out of many people that they had mental disabilities. So Uganda, we need to really teach our people how to control the stress. Then the other thing is issues of GBV has always brought mental health to persons. These cases have raised higher and higher. We need to look for mental, psychosocial counselings. these people, it's hard sometimes to get that they are in our workplace. But what is very important is that an employer must always have time to interact with these people, and you identify that there are some staff who are there, but you cannot get them. However, there are these people who are on the road. Those ones are different. But we have these ones in the offices who can be taken for medical, and some of them have accepted to be open, though some are not yet open. Then we also have another group of disability called little person, people of short stature. You'll think the person all the time is a young child, but they are big. Where is their challenge? Accessibility. Like now, if we say that we have a switch, where have you put your switch? So we encourage at the workplace also, even when they have they are get opportunity of jobs, the working frames should be shut down in such a way that their tables should be lower. Now you see mostly in the banks, in the tellers, some of these tellers have been brought down. Why is it that, like for example, Stanbic, previously the tellers were a bit high, but now they have made it reduced to down. Why is it so? It is because of the advocacy. We said these people cannot use the higher teller. Then we have another disability called intellectual and the learning disability. They learn very slow. These are the people like autism group. We all put them together as learning disabilities. However, to work with them is always hard. They don't get a qualification. Most of them don't go to that level of getting qualifications. But we encourage them to have hand skills, whereby they can mop, they can do anything in the office so long as you've given them and taken them through. So in NUDIPU, we are trying all our best to accommodate all these different member groups that I've talked here as an umbrella organization for persons with disabilities as mothers. Also, we have another one called epilepsy. Mental health epilepsy, you have seizures. Also, that one is hard to find or to identify at the workplace unless somebody opens up. Why is it so? Because they depend on medical always. They take some medicine that controls them. Unless it attacks when you are there, that's when you will get to know. However, we want a community, a society where we all fit in and we all work together. On the area of disability inclusion, this is a very big concept. And in UNCRPD, on Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2006, it was many countries assigned, rectified this UNCRPD. So from that time, the countries have started to talk about inclusion of disability. Yes, we have this exclusion. What does it mean? Nothing included for persons with disability. They say they are not part of the process. We also have segregation. What does it mean? You try to bring them a bit, bring persons with disabilities. However, the services are not accessible. They are just there to add up your numbers, but they don't benefit. Then we come to the language inclusion. Is whereby all people are together. Persons with disabilities are there. Without disabilities are there. All the services and all people benefit the services equally. Like for example, now here, there's a lot of inclusion. Why are we saying, I have an interpreter here? The system is here is inclusive. The lifts, the ramps, these are the things that we show that there is inclusion. Even those people who are visually impaired or the blind, you give them the braille, give them the guides or personal assistant, or give them audios. They will participate equally like any other person. To simplify the whole process for all people, I want to give you, like in the area of work right now, if you employ a person with a visual impairment, give him, just like you bring him here, without jaws, without a personal assistant. Is that inclusion? That's not inclusion. So give that person support services to make that person being included in work. This really shows that we are promoting inclusion employment for persons with disabilities.
You know, I've been here just nodding because I've been learning a lot already, Deborah. Thank you so much. And from what you've said, there's a wide spectrum of disability. And I also read somewhere that disability is more about the social environment, those barriers that prevent us from participating equally in everything that we do, whether it's a physical barrier, a social barrier when communities don't accept persons with disabilities and so on. And then impairment, like you're saying, is all these at an individual level. If I have a visual impairment or hearing impairment, it's at an individual. But like you're saying, there are a lot of barriers that prevent persons with disabilities from having equal opportunities, not only in the workplace, but in other aspects of society. And you've mentioned a few things that can, some of the different needs for the different persons with disabilities. The needs would be different for different persons with disabilities. And I think from what you're saying, employers need to take those needs into consideration if they want to have disability inclusion in the workplace. Our listeners would want to know, are there any practical success stories that NUDIPU and your partners have been able to see where companies or employers have been inclusive, have mainstream disability inclusion in the workplaces? Can you give us one or two success stories that NUDIPU and partners have either supported in disability inclusion? You have walked the journey with them.
Okay, thank you very much. It's true. The journey to employment. We started being seriously doing it in 2016. The campaigning in education previously was there. So after that, we realized that many persons with disabilities have gotten at least some level of education. So we started working with some partners, like, for example, Denmark. Then also we had another partner, Light for the World. We made a project which was to make 12.4% work. Where did we get this 12.4% work? Remember the 2014 census. It got that persons with disabilities are like 12.4% in the population of Uganda. So we used that as our topic or as the name for our project. So what intervention did we do here? We partnered with the Federation of Uganda Employers, Light for the World, and then some other private sectors, sensitizing employers, engaging them one-on-one and making them also to make a write-up. Right now, I want to show you the model. This is Uganda Breweries Limited. Is a good partner right now. We started from 2017. We wrote a write-up and they got interested on inclusiveness of persons with disability. Right now, if you want to get more, you can go to Uganda Breweries. You can get, they will give you more information. They take interns, they take volunteers. Also, I want another example is Standard Chartered Bank. They have employed a person with a visual impairment for all these so many years. Standard Chartered Bank has now gotten more innovation that it has gotten other programs, future programs. So these programs are also involving persons with disabilities. When you go to DFCU Bank, first of all, I want to thank all the banks, Centenary, Stanbic, Standard Chartered Bank, DFCU, for the inclusive employment. The environment is accessible. They have really taken persons with disabilities, and we always appreciate them and we take them as our models. Then another one is also Coca-Cola. For a long time, Coca-Cola has been employing persons with disabilities. Then the other one is Darling, is also employing persons with disabilities. However, on the side of government, they are always positive. Our ministry is positive. Whenever we discuss with the District Service Commission, these are the approaches on how to bring up persons with disability. They said, how? It has been a challenge for them. But right now, we are moving on, sensitizing them on how to bring up persons with disabilities. They are really very happy. We have also gone into local government. Like Kasese, we have economist in Kasese who lost his sight. He's just so good in Kasese. All this is because of good environment. And we are saying as NUDIPU, the journey has not yet started. The journey has not ended, but we are moving ahead. We have seen the positiveness, we have seen the fruits, but we still want more fruits.
Yes, and that's amazing that we have companies that are doing this at practical level, disability inclusion practically. And like you said, Deborah, 12.4% of Uganda's populations are persons with disability. And most of them, research has shown that they face barriers to education, barriers to employment, and hearing that there are companies that are actually making strides towards disability inclusion, I think will give a good picture on where we can start to change the situation for persons with disabilities. I wanted you to let us know, because you said this work that you've been doing through NUDIPU and your partners started in 2017. What are 2 to 3 practical tips that you can share on how these companies have been inclusive in their workplaces?
Okay, thank you very much. The practical tips here. If you really want to see that disability is included, first of all, the policies. What are your employment policies or human resource policy says? Yes, in the law, Persons with Disabilities Act promotes inclusive advert. But some of these companies put in the advert that we encourage women and persons with disabilities to apply. And now when we go into the human resource policy of that company, yes, you've sent out the advert. And when persons with disability come across this advert, they say, even this organization has encouraged us. I think we can also try. So you see how somebody is motivated to apply. Then the other thing is environment of interview. After the shortlisting, we can also encourage them to put what disability do they have. Like me, Deborah Iyute, I'm deaf. So when I'm shortlisted, so the process should be inclusive. Will we be having an interpreter there or a person to support that person during the interview process? For a visually impaired person, if it's a written interview, is it clear enough? If you're planning for practicals, computer, are there JAWS in that computer? Those are some of the things that we need to prepare. So it makes the employer to be very good and ready to be inclusive. Those are the steps. When you finish up the interviews and maybe the person with disabilities has gone through, I will also say that give me reasonable accommodation. What do I mean by reasonable accommodation? Any adjustment, modification at the workplace that will help a person with disabilities to work like any other staff. Like, for example, you've brought me Deborah. You can call me Deborah. You've succeeded, you've come. But what do you want us to help you in order for you to work together? So I will tell you that in the area of communication, I want to be supported. Or a visually impaired person can say, I want JAWS. You will put JAWS in that computer for that person. So the tips here majorly we talk about is the advert in line with the policies of that organization. Then in line with the attitude of those people in that organization, those ones who are shortlisting, What is the process of interview? The process of interview, shortlisting, interviewing, and all this. Then lastly, the process of giving this person a job, reasonable accommodation at the workplace. These are three things. The moment any organization, any company does these three things, this is really to show effectiveness of inclusion. However, in general issue is accessibility. The attitude of staff need to be sensitized how to work with the persons with the disabilities. Is there a ramp or a lift? Are the toilets accessible for a person maybe using a wheelchair? So all this can make a place to be inclusive and a working environment for everybody fitting in.
Thank you for those practical steps. And I think they show, some of the really manageable ways that you can start. Many times when we're talking about disability with inclusion, companies think that it has to be very big, costly, but you're saying that there are some manageable steps that we can do, including how do we advertise? How do we ensure that our work environment is accessible? How do we sensitize our staff? Now, you've mentioned something I think that we can delve into, some of the challenges. What are some of the challenges you've faced when supporting employers to have a disability inclusive workplace? For example, in Uganda, because we have progressive laws and policies around persons with disability. For example, one of the laws, I think it's the Employment Act, Deborah, correct me if I'm wrong, which says that if an employer employs 10 or more persons with disabilities, they are eligible to get tax deductions as an incentive for employers to employ persons with disability. But we have not seen so many companies take that route. But I'm happy to hear some of these positive companies that you've talked about. What are some of the challenges they themselves have faced in creating a disability inclusive workplace? And also, what are some of the challenges that others have faced, including persons with disability themselves, accessing inclusive workplaces?
Okay, let me start with the persons with disabilities ourselves. The major challenge here is attitude. We have all grown up in a society whereby it's hard to remove or to reduce the attitude. In the area of interviews, HR, human resource persons, yes, the law is here. Non-discrimination. Reporting gives us a report, give us a right to report. But many times now, these HR people, they no longer directly show their attitude. So they tend to twist you this way and the other way. Even if you've succeeded interview at that workplace, when you come, the perception, the first way the people look at you is they will look at your disability. Then you come to the environment in the office. Some people even fear bringing persons with the disabilities. And also some persons with disabilities have fear to go because of maybe steps. There's no accessibility to the office where somebody is supposed to go and work. Yes, they have given you an opportunity, but the office you are going to sit is supposed to be upstairs. Then another challenge is many of these employers fear employing persons with disabilities, saying that, it's very expensive. I bring one person, then I again bring for Deborah an interpreter, or I bring the other person with a visual impairment, then I bring again a guide or a personal assistant. The song they say always is disability is expensive, forgetting that it's a human right and a need that we need all to be taking responsible. But now they're using the word, we are expensive. But one good thing here, in the private sector, jobs like for example, UBL, banks, there's not a lot of talking. So it's easier for the deaf to work because everything is like in written. Physical people can sit. They can sit in a teller and do the work in the computer. It's easier. However, we advise the employers, if you have a training, if you have a meeting, please can you get an interpreter for your staff who are deaf? Then other days, yes, they can they can work alone, but you can bring, when it's a sensitive issue, a meeting, a training, please bring the interpreter. However, some staff can also learn basics and they can use for communicating internally. And also we are requesting employers that in the Persons with Disabilities Act, it was said that if employs persons with disabilities 10 and above, they can get incentives 15% lower. That we saw that it was a benefit for employers. And the employers made profits out of persons with disabilities. They got persons with disabilities everywhere. But however, the positions we were giving them were sweepers, over office messengers. So, and yet they were getting really these incentives. So when URA saw that the people we are accepting to reduce the taxes from are just employing people who are team makers, who are just low positions. Then URA saw that we have lost a lot of money. So now it has been reduced to 2%. Remember, from 2%, from 15% now to 2%. Now people again have lost morale. However, we saw that they had abused this law.
A lot of challenges at policy level, a policy that we thought would encourage employers to employ persons with disability was instead being abused. I guess it's a catch-22 situation, but you're also talking about challenges that persons with disabilities themselves face to access employment in terms of attitudes at the workplace and so on. And I think it's a work in progress, but from what you've said, there are positive steps nonetheless. And NUDIPU and partners, you're working a lot with employers to create that change, enabling environment, not just at policy level, but for persons with disabilities themselves. We've come to the end of our session today, Deborah, but I wanted to, give you a chance to give us your parting shot. What would you like our listeners to take away from our discussion today on working differently?
I want to say thank you very much, our listeners, all of you, all organizations, companies. Please join us in this drive to include persons with disabilities, to work with you. Thank you very much. For those ones who have worked with us, we thank you. You've been really role models to us. FUE is championing, sensitizing its members, and gives them always awards every year, those who have employed persons with disabilities. So please, this has helped to motivate and inspire other organizations, companies to employ persons with disabilities. Now, government, the lead implementation of this framework of including persons with disability in employment is yours. So we ask your government, open workplaces, bring persons with disabilities also to a place of work. We are diverse in different places. It will show a good picture, and it contributes to the global inclusion agenda. Because we have SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal 8, says decent work. So we also want to contribute towards that decent work when we are giving opportunities for jobs. Our colleagues with disabilities, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope while looking for these jobs. Continue striving more and more. Go and compete for interviews. You can get a job. And also those ones who have gotten a job, please retain your job. Work professionally, because workplace, it's always a competition. So once you've gotten this opportunity, please work hard. Show that we can, and we can always work very hard.
Thank you so much, Deborah. You've really been an inspiration. Listeners and friends, we've come to the end of our session today, our first episode on working differently. I want to thank Deborah so much for sharing your story of working differently. And thank you to Sarah, your interpreter, ably interpreting what you have said to us today. I think some of the key takeaways that we have learned from our session with you today, Deborah, is, the understanding the different spectrum of disability and understanding that it doesn't mean that persons with a disability cannot be productive members of society. And from what you've shared with us, there are success stories of employers who have been able to be inclusive at the workplace. And we take the practical tips that you have shown us. What are the kinds of policies that workplaces put in place? What are the HR procedures for hiring? How can they create inclusive workplaces by, for example, having washrooms that are accessible, furniture, computers that have software for persons with disability, and as well as sensitizing staff, because staff themselves need to be able to welcome people who are different from them. For me, the most exciting thing was just listening to your own personal story, Deborah, of where you started from and who has inspired you. And you continue to be a role model and inspiration to those you work with and to the projects that you're leading. Thank you, friends, for joining today's conversation. Keep the discussion going on social media using the hashtag Ubuntu Narratives. If you have stories to share or insights to contribute, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time.